Hey, it's Jason. In this episode, I'm going to be interviewed by Josh Null. He's a financial advisor in Fairhope, Alabama. So Josh had been following me for a while on social media and really liked what I was doing, saw all the engagement and all the following I was building, the influence I had with social media, and wanted to learn more about how he could infuse content marketing into the financial planning business. So he invited me to his office for a video interview for his YouTube channel. In turn, we asked him if we could strip the audio and bring it to my audience. So I hope you enjoy this episode with him flipping the script and interviewing me for a change.
Welcome to the Agent 251 podcast, the real estate show that looks deep into the work and culture at JWRE, Jason Will Real Estate, in Mobile and Baldwin counties. Jason, Agent 251, investigates and spills the beans on his case closing clues and industry secrets for motivating agents while educating buyers and sellers.
My name is Josh Null, and I am a financial advisor. What I'm trying to do, what we're going to be doing with this podcast, Jason and I were discussing before we came on the air, is I'm going to be exploring the stories of Baldwin County business owners, business leaders, entrepreneurs, and seeing if we can't share those experiences and the knowledge gained from that with other people that might find it relevant to their situation. That being said, this is Jason Will, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey, everybody. Jason Will. I'm the owner at JWRE. We are an independent brokerage that currently operates 4 locations in the state of Alabama, and we will be expanding into the Florida Panhandle this fall. So we're excited about that, and thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate that. So the point of what we're going to try to do is we're going to teach some of these topics related to the financial impact of the journey you went through. So it stays a little bit relevant to what my line of work is with financial advising. But if you've ever watched a movie where in the beginning you saw the present day or you saw the future, then you flash back. So JWRE Real Estate, where if somebody said, give me 30 seconds of where you stand right now, what would you say?
In terms of where we're going to be?
Size, agents, now where you're going to be, where you're at right now.
Oh, where we're at right now. Well, I never would have saw this coming.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't I guess we thought about going independent, but it really wasn't on our radar. We were with Keller Williams for a number of years, started my real estate there at Keller Williams in South Tampa, Florida in 2004. And I was just a KW guy. And I thought I would be a KW guy forever. I really did. So I never saw this coming, and we'll get into that, I guess, in a little bit. But I am surprised at the size that we have reached now. I mean, we're over, I don't even know where we are. We're over 130 agents, I think, and 4 locations. Recruiting has become a part of our DNA of our company, and we use social media as the primary recruiting tool that we use, and we continue to use it. And from a financial advising standpoint, the growth, that trajectory that we've been on has been a little bit reckless, if I'm being totally honest. We've overextended ourselves in a lot of ways, but at the same time, we've had some really talented people go, hey, we want to be in business with you. Right. From just what they've seen on social media. And so my wife and I had to sit down and go, do we want to wait for somebody else to scoop this person up? They are like CEO leadership, but also have the hearts of servants. Do we want to let them go? And so we have a good yin and yang. She's more the operator.
Your wife.
Yes.
Diane.
And so I'm more of the entrepreneur, and she's more the operator.
You make the mess, she
cleans it up. Yeah. So I've made a big mess the last 3 years, but there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel.
So 4 locations, Mobile, Orange Beach, Fairhope.
And Birmingham.
Okay. And over 130 agents. All right. So that's where you're at. And we talked about this first time we talked, and maybe I'm a nerd, but I love to know, now we get to flashback. Yeah. So right now you're sitting, not comfortable, because when you have explosive growth like that, I was in real estate years ago, and it got away from me. It can be uncomfortable. It's exciting, but it also can be a little overwhelming where you don't feel like you can ever catch your breath. Right. So I'm curious about the guy that started. I don't want to go back to childhood, but I'd like to go back. Let's look at college. Did you go to college? When you were in college, did you study real estate? Did you know you were going to be in real estate? Did you get a bachelor's in real estate? What did you do in college?
I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was totally lost throughout college. Right. My parents wasted a lot of money on college. I joke about this a lot, but I majored in beer and girls.
Sure.
I was really into partying, and that what I was good at. Right. So I'm lucky that I made it out, and I made it out with a very low GPA. It was like a 2.3 or something. It was really bad.
Run by C students.
Yeah. So I was totally lost, and came home after I graduated, still not knowing what to do, and bounced around. I waited tables out of college. Met my wife waiting tables, so that was a blessing. I mean, she's like superwoman. So it's weird. Like I had this long growth curve of maturity. Like I was still partying until like I was 24, like hard partying.
Understood.
To a reckless extent, but some of that was based on the fact that I was just so lost.
Right.
I didn't know what to do, and I'm the son of a man who was the first person in our family to graduate from college, self-made millionaire, and his expectation of his sons was high. Right. And part of my frustration, I think, was I thought I had some of those elements to be successful, but I just really didn't know what avenue. I was kind of a jack of all trades, but the master of none.
Well, you probably just thought success just happened.
Probably,
You're waiting tables thinking somebody's going to see how talented I am and just offer me something.
And one of my dad's business associates is going to scoop me up. When none of that stuff happened, I was like, geez, what am I going to do? Am I going to wait tables for the rest of my life? I look back on it now, and it's all everything, even the bad stuff, has turned into something really, really positive. Right. So the past kind of lets me off the hook pretty easily, I think, in a lot of ways, because I think about like, what if I had studied, and what if I had?
You might be a really, really good employee.
I could be. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I feel bad because like I don't really feel guilty about all the time and brain cells and money I've wasted and all the inappropriate things I've done at parties. That's a whole other story. I tell Travis a lot of that stuff. But it's brought me here where I am today. Right. And I would not change a thing. Right. It's an amazing journey that I've been on and been able to affect a lot of people's lives and, still in the trenches with everybody else. Because, a lot of people look at what I'm doing and they think that I'm some technology expert or some social media expert. And I mean, people bring me their laptops and expect me to fix them. And I'm like, what are you doing? I mean, so I've just had this very novice understanding of how to do this stuff. And that's why it's so powerful. Is that you don't need expensive equipment. You don't need a heck of a lot of training. You just need to be authentic.
All right. So let's keep staying back. When did you decide to become a real estate agent? Somewhere along that time period.
Yeah.
You've had a license of some form for how many years now?
I've been licensed since April of 2004.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if my math is right, then late 20s, 30s is when you started thinking about getting into real estate.
I remember I was waiting tables. I'd come home from college waiting tables and doing some odd things. Like I worked for a title company for a while and hated it. I was doing title research and hated it. I worked for a friend of mine's father who did chemical cleaning on oil rigs. And
sounds fun.
Yeah. And so we were lugging these big hoses and I was hanging out with, a lot of gruff guys and got some tattoos to show for it. But, and I was like, this is going to be my life. I'm going to be like this blue collar guy. And I just didn't have this blue collar mentality. I couldn't relate to the people I worked with and they thought I was some snobby rich kid, which I was. But I held my own in that field. I was the only person I think that went to work for my friend's dad because he employed a lot of us that actually gained some respect out of those folks. But I finally just went to my dad and I was like, look, and he was, like, we need to figure this out. And I started getting books for Christmas. I forget about this, but like I got a book from my brother one Christmas that was like Finding Your Purpose. And I was like,
he was giving you a hint.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God.
It's a big hint.
Yeah. So and he was 4 years younger than me. So, and he's one of those guys that knew exactly what he wanted to do, like for a long time, his whole life. So, and I was just like, wow, I'm so envious. But I sat down with my dad and I said, really, what do you think my options are?
Right.
And he said, well, I really think you'd be a great real estate agent or you'd be a really good school teacher.
Okay.
This is how just naive and ignorant I was back then. I didn't really know what either of those positions paid. So I said, all right, well, how much does a real estate agent make? He said, well, it's 100% commission. I said, all right, teacher, He told me. I said, all right, so I think I'll go with the teacher.
Right.
The guaranteed money,
That's right.
30,000, I'll take it. So I started taking classes at South, still waiting tables. It was in a graduate program at the University of South Alabama. And a buddy of mine called me and said, hey, before you spend all this thousands of dollars on graduate school, or your parents do, there's a teaching shortage in Tampa, Florida. So you can come down here right away, get a job right away, and they'll pay for your classes at night to get your certificate. So I don't know, within a week or so, we packed up, moved.
You're married by now.
No, well, I'd only been dating Diana, who's now my wife, for a few months, but she came with me. Thank goodness. Yeah. So we went down there, and, come to find out, teaching's really hard.
Right.
And it takes a lot of patience, and I don't have a lot of patience. But I stuck with it long enough for us to get married and, go through the process of buying our first house. And our real estate agent was phenomenal.
Okay.
And she told me.
This is in Tampa.
This is in Tampa. And she said, Jason, you need to be a real estate agent.
All right.
And she had a BMW and like an entourage and all these nice clothes. And it just so happens you go this time off with being a teacher, but you're not making any money to really enjoy it.
Sure. Right.
So, if we needed a new set of tires on one of our vehicles, it was like panic mode. The very next spring break that rolled around, there was an accelerated program in Florida. I got my license in 10 days.
This was 2004.
Mm-hmm.
So you started selling real estate in Tampa to start.
Yeah.
In 2004.
It did.
Good time.
It was a great time. You could pick up, I would literally be putting an open house sign in the ground and have somebody stop and go, hey, where's that house? We want to buy it, without even seeing it. So it was a very easy time for me to make money, which also gave me some false pretenses about what the industry really, really was.
I was a builder then.
Yeah. So.
Thought I was really smart.
Yeah. Right. And, I got into the business and we had friends that were in their very early 20s that were making $300,000 a year working for builders as on-site salespeople and driving.
That and the mortgage guys.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, driving Maseratis and just making all kind of just ridiculous money.
It all too.
Yeah. Just having a great time.
Knew a few of those.
Yeah. So that was my life for a little while, and then the market crashed, and that was.
Tampa got hit a little earlier.
It did.
07-ish.
It
started the wheels coming off in 06. So.
It started to really slow down in 06. And
it would have been one of your canaries in the coal mine, really.
You really started to feel it probably May of 2006. We started making plans to actually return to Fairhope. Right. I had some buddies here from college that were selling real estate, and they're like, hey, the market's still good up here. Right. So
didn't get as high, didn't get as low.
Right. So we ended up coming back here in February of 07.
Okay. Were you with Keller Williams in Tampa?
I was.
So when you transitioned here, you just attached to the local Keller Williams?
I did.
Right.
Yeah, I actually took a year off and went to work for my dad for about 10 months, and that was like being under your parents' roof again.
Sure.
That was terrible, but I learned a lot. But
did you take a break because of the market conditions? Did you just take a break just to kind of get reestablished going again? Yeah,
I just took a break. I mean, it was not something very normal for him to offer me something like that. So I figured I needed to just give it, to see it through. Yeah. And we needed, it was like, hey, instead of just going and restarting your whole real estate career, let's see if this is something you might want to do. But,
all right, so what year did you get back going full time?
The worst possible time ever.
So 2008.
Yeah. I got the summer of 2008, basically this experiment with me working for my family went terribly wrong.
Understood.
And I had to get out. So the only other thing I knew how to do was sell real estate.
Right.
And it was really, really tough. But it taught me a very valuable lesson.
And that is?
That I could make real estate a career no matter what the market did. My focus shouldn't be on whether a market's good or bad. Right. There's just, if I'm doing consistent activities, there's just going to be a market. Right. It's really just how I react to conditions, and not letting the market happen to me.
Understood.
I looked at real estate as such a volatile industry by mortgage rates and, so cyclical with the economy that I was like, I don't know if I really wanted to make this a long-term career. And some of the agents and mortgage brokers and people we were hanging out with Tampa were saying, listen, it's not, they knew it wouldn't be like that forever.
They were in the few. A lot of people just thought it was going to last.
Yeah. So there were a few that I talked to. They're like, listen, this is a wave we're riding here and it won't be that long.
Well, so you survive 08. You're still with Keller Williams. Things probably start picking up 2010-ish, 11, you start seeing some light. Things get a little easier, right?
I did start to find...
A lot of it is you just have less competition.
Yeah, a bunch of people got out of the business. And we did have less competition. And, I was able to find some footing, working with investors and, the prices when they dipped that low. People, we were working with first-time home buyers. Yeah, so that sustained us. But, I really got scared when the oil spill hit.
I bet.
The phones really stopped ringing. I mean, everything froze for a good solid 60 days.
Right. And
that was the scariest I've been. But that's when I started thinking, I need to get out of real estate. It's just too volatile. I've got to get out. And I started looking for other types of employment. I actually got my license to sell insurance.
Okay.
Didn't do anything with it, but
must have been really desperate.
Yeah, I mean, I was just drawing at straws. It was a scary, scary time because I had one baby at that point, another one on the way, and I was like, real estate is just, what's the deal? But a mentor of mine at the time, I went to her. She was my team leader at Keller Williams, and I went to her and I said, listen, I'm going to have to get out of the business. And she said, why? And I said, I just can't make any money. I got one kid on the way, and this between the market conditions and now the oil spill, it's just like, it's crazy. I got to get out. And so she said, well, just bear with me for a minute. Let's talk about this. So she pulled out her laptop and she said, let's look at the top 200 in the MLS and see if they're still, transacting business. So she pulled it up, and lo and behold, there was still a fair amount of business happening, even with all this stuff going on. Right. And she said, what are they doing that you're not? There's got to be something happening here that you're not doing. And I was like, I don't know. At that point, I really wasn't into the conversation. I was just kind of humoring her. And she said, and I was like, just tell me. And she said, they're learning based and you're not. Right. They participate. You don't. They prepare better than you do. Right. You're kind of the fly by the seat of your pants. She was extremely honest with me, which is what I needed to hear. Right. And, she said, listen, if you come into the office, you get plugged into the trainings, you start reading books, podcasts really weren't that big at the time, but webinars were really big and YouTube was cranking. She said, there's so much out there. Right. Just plug into it and give this, another 90 days or so and kind of see what happens. So what was that? Was the oil spill like 2010 or 22? Yeah, I can't remember when the oil spill was.
We were still in Missouri at that time.
Yeah. But I took her advice. And I started.
Did you finally get serious?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I started coming into the office, participating in the trainings, consuming everything I could find online. If there was a free webinar offered, I registered for it, watched it, found some people that I really liked, and started applying what they were teaching to me. And it was really game over from there. I ended up writing a blog a few years later called "Staring Down the Barrel of Failure and Living to Tell About It."
Sure.
Because I was really almost done. And I would be an employee and a miserable employee if I hadn't taken her advice. It was finally her advice that set me free.
Well, you wouldn't be a very good broker either, because we deal with it in our industry. We've been in the longest or second longest bull market run now since the Roaring 20s, right? So it's 8+ years going on, rising stock market. And you have advisors, agents, people out there that have never known anything but. All they've ever seen the level do is rise. Right. They've never been faced with, a hurricane financially. They've never been faced with a downturn in the market, a 2008, a 2000, so on and so forth. So they can't really give you, when you have somebody walk in and say, now some people are going to walk in and say, I just don't know this for me. You're going to say, yeah, you're probably right. Some people are going to walk in and say, I don't know this is for me, and you're going to be able to have an actual conversation like, listen, you know how many times I quit? Because I've heard like 6 times in this conversation.
Right, yeah.
I think you quit about 6 times.
Yeah.
So now you can have that conversation, and you say, this is what happened. Now, sometimes you quit because there was some external pressure, right? Sometimes you quit because you just quit in here, right? But you can have that conversation with them. Whereas, what if you've never been through that? I mean, what if you never had that experience? That's right. What if it had just been easy streets since you opened your doors? Would you be real with it? Yeah, and I wouldn't have nearly enough value. But that's one of the things I try to tell whether it's an individual consultation or an audience of people, that wherever you failed at, whatever you've tried that hasn't worked, I've been right there with you. I guarantee you I've tried it.
You know, I've faced every hardship you could possibly face in this industry and come through it.
Right.
So,
well, let's talk about the hardest one.
Okay.
So you're not with Keller Williams any longer.
No.
All right.
No.
So I have found in my career, I have been either self-employed, business owner, or contractor, or all three at one time for 20 years. I came out of college. I was a W-2 employee for a couple of years at Sprint. Hey, Sprint, I was horrible. I mean, I was really bad. I was just bad. I was a country kid. I had never put on a shirt and tie. You know, you said blue collar. We always, we joke, we weren't blue collar. We were lucky to have
a collar.
We were lucky to have sleeves. Yeah. Forget collar. I mean, half my wardrobe did not have sleeves.
Right.
So, I came into that environment, and I'm walking in, I'm wearing boots, and I just, I really just wasn't ready. I wasn't mature enough. I had never been down that road, so I got back into real estate because that's what I grew up with. And from that point forward, it's 20 years of just being self-employed, whatever it may be. And along that route is you've stared down the barrel of failure. You've put yourself out there. You've fallen on your face. You've picked yourself up, and you've moved forward. And you've done it with very little safety net, right? So we've kind of had to do the same thing, especially with the real estate side of it. But I always found, the point of this is I've always found my greatest no's, the hardest things I had to swallow eventually led to my greatest yeses. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to take a stab. And I don't know the full story. All I know is, the hints you've given here and there. But you had already decided to be serious about it, but you were probably going to be fine just being a Keller Williams agent for years and years and years and years. And I don't mean to pick on any of them, right? Mm-hmm. You were going to be a captive agent for years and years and years and years. Something happened. Yeah. Something pushed you. You went from getting a little bit older. You got a few more scars. You got a little bit more experience. You've already decided to get serious about your career, but now the rug got pulled out from underneath you. Can we talk about that? Sure. Okay. Yeah. What changed? Why does this exist? And why am I not talking to a Keller Williams agent? Yeah, it has really nothing to do with Keller Williams on a national or even international level. I mean, the company is, one of the most successful and in the industry, and Gary Keller is still a role model mentor of mine. Let me rephrase it. I don't mean it that way, because I've left companies. Yeah. It is 99% of the time, wasn't anything wrong with the company. I was just, it's kind of like when, you outgrow the shell or you need to expand or it's not the right fit. Well, this was actually an internal conflict. Okay, all right. So our company, our local market center here in Fairhope got sold to a ownership group out of Baton Rouge, and they made several leadership changes. I just didn't see eye to eye with this new leadership group is really the nicest way to put it. Okay. We had moved on. We had left Fairhope, and my real estate team was still operating out of this market center. But my wife and my kids and our dog had moved to a little island on the Caribbean side of Panama called Bocas del Toro. To sell real estate. Yes. I mean, my wife had different reasons. My wife needed a break. She was burnt out and wanted to expose the kids to a new culture and, just... Plan on coming back, or was it intended to be a permanent move? We didn't know. We wanted to see where it would take us, but it would at the minimum we thought we would be gone for about a year. Probably it was a promise you had made when you were younger and no kids that you were going to go on an adventure at some point. I always wanted to do this, especially since I was so lost. I was like, I'd always regretted that I didn't go travel and experience other cultures and things and, spent all that time drinking all that beer, which, was just such a waste. But when she had this notion, I was like, we were like kindred spirits. And I was like, let's go. All right. I thought she was making it up. But it was a business opportunity to do. I can't just go somewhere and just sit there. Well, good. So, not as young as you are. Play golf. I just can't, I have to be doing something. So as soon as I realized she was serious, because I would come home and we would have big pieces of furniture missing. We would have artwork on the walls gone. And I was like, where is this stuff going? She's like, I sold it. She was just on Snag It and Tag It and on these, and she's just when Craigslist was actually something you could sell something. Right. She's going on all these groups and selling stuff right and left. So once I realized like, hey, I got nowhere to sit. I need to start getting a game plan together. So I just started reaching out via Facebook to people that I knew that might know somebody, and just started getting these referrals of people to connect with. Okay. And ended up connecting with a guy out of Houston, Texas that had moved down to Panama, a developer out of Destin that had moved down to Panama.
I went down there with my drone and got a bunch of attention just for taking drone pictures.
All right.
A lot of rich people or people that had, multi-million-dollar properties were trying to get in touch with me to do drone work for them.
But you're still a real estate agent.
Yeah, our team is still going.
Producing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Must have changed.
yeah, one of the biggest things I learned. I mean, we knew that our team was not solid enough to probably sustain itself for a long time without us there. We didn't have core values. We didn't have a strong culture. We didn't leave the team in the hands of strong leadership, and that was part of the rift that happened with Keller Williams. And there's a lot of stuff that happened with the whole Keller Williams thing that we still to this day have no idea what happened.
Sure.
I just know that there was tensions with the leadership, which ended up, like, I came to the defense of my leadership and then ended up tangling with the new leadership of the company. And there was one conversation that I had with the new broker of that office here in Fairhope, who's since left and opened her own company. But I got off the phone with her, a very heated conversation, and I told my wife, I was like, I pissed her off, and she's going to mess me up for it.
Right.
And back then, I really had, I was pretty arrogant, and I thought, the Keller Williams would never be able to fire me because I was one of their top producers.
You more than you needed them.
Yeah, I keep dropping this. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right.
And I would make comments like,
lesson.
yeah, and I would make comments like, I pay the light bill around here.
Right.
That's
a hard lesson.
Yeah, I was really a turd now that I look back on it. But this new leadership group had a lot of mud on their face too. But, so we both had our faults. But yeah, I remember we were taking a water taxi from the main island over to a little hostel that this lady was wanting to sell for like $1.3 million. And we were going to shoot it that day. And I got a call via Facebook Messenger saying that my license had been sent back and we had been fired.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
All right. So just like that. So now, all right. So you're in Panama.
Yeah.
Not Panama City.
No.
Yeah,
no. In the country, a long way away.
All right. And now you got no job.
No job and
no passive income. No.
Could not transact business. Right. Basically, what happened is the business that we had was dismantled. The people that I really don't know who did this, but people started contacting our sellers and our buyers on our behalf, trying to keep whatever business they could. There were a lot of rumors. I don't know who spread these rumors, but there were a lot of rumors spread about us here locally because we called. I figured this was one of the big things. I figured, well, I'll just call any brokerage in Baldwin County will want to pick me up. Yeah, they'll pick me up. I told my team, I said, we'll be back in business in no time. Don't panic. I got this covered. But nobody would take us.
All right.
Nobody would take us. Yeah, I did. And she got me good. But, it turned out to be one of the biggest blessings. But that was rock bottom. I never forget. That happened on a Friday. There were only a couple planes that flew off the island, and one just happened to be flying out that Saturday at 5. So the next day at 5, I was gone.
Right.
And
assuming you never went back.
I did not go back, and I had to leave my family there for 2 months. We'd only been in country 3 weeks when this happened.
She was so happy with you.
Yeah. So, and she even told me, she was like, shouldn't you? She's so smart. She had 2 kids and a dog.
All right.
We went down to that island with about 13, 14 suitcases, 2 kids and a dog crate. And I remember when I was leaving, they're all watching me from our balcony, and I'm walking down the road to where I just walked to the airport, pulling my thing. I mean, it's a tiny little island. And she's like, should you be taking more stuff with you? And I was like, oh, I'm coming back. I'm coming back. And I never came back.
All right. So more or less you get your legs cut out from underneath you. Now you come back. You're thinking you'll just pick up where you left off. Well, that ship has sailed. So now you're sitting there. I would imagine you don't seem like a person that gets down too much, but I imagine there was some blackness there. There was some hands in the head in the hands moments.
There were some tears shed. I had to leave, and I don't know. It was like I was going to miss my son's birthday, and I kind of lost it in that moment. But we had also discussed. I had some really good things going for me down there, and some people that, who knows? I mean, who knows what the opportunities were there, but I was making some contacts with some really wealthy people that had projects going on, because Panama is like the land of opportunity. I mean, there's so much development that's going on down there right now, and so many real estate opportunities, but so little like competent help, like people that had my marketing experience and all that stuff. So, I mean, I was in high demand.
Right.
And so I thought, I think we had about $16,000 to our name. We probably would have been fine. It was I was like, I don't want to run out of money down here, because it's different in terms of how you can get hired and how you can get paid as not being a citizen. So we probably would have gotten all that ironed out, but I'm from here,
right.
Born in Fairhope, born at Thomas Hospital, and I just felt like I needed to come back here and defend my name.
All right, so you came back, defended your name, and one way you do that is by opening your own. Now, what year did JWR, I know it was Jason Will Real Estate, what year did that open?
It was October of 2013. We've got all of our licenses and everything ironed out and became official. Immediate success.
No problems whatsoever.
No, yeah, it's all been perfect since then.
This looks great. I'll just buy from this guy.
Yeah, we had a large team, but only 4. It was my wife and 2 other agents came with us to this new brokerage.
Well, yeah, because you're Jerry Maguire.
Right. Yeah. Who's coming with me? Not a whole lot of people came.
I wouldn't have. So you open it, and at that point, this will get us to present day. Were you already doing the marketing things you're doing now, or was that because no one taught you that? There was no one that was doing it that way, right? The only not here locally, and definitely not in the real estate. When did the light bulb start coming on?
Well, I created my YouTube channel in 2010.
All right. So and some of the seeds already planted.
Yeah, I was creating content, and I was videoing myself, touring subdivisions and doing subdivision tours, and, just on a very limited basis.
Right. Run the mill.
Yeah. And then I had read Gary Vee's Crush It. He came out with Crushing It in January of 2018, but I think Crush It launched in 2009. So I had read that. I didn't get my copy until like 2010. So Gary Vee was already on my radar. I just didn't know how I could step into that realm and gain some type of following.
Sure.
So it really wasn't until we went on our own that, I started to do this.
Right.
And so one of the ways it just kind of happened, because we had to, we were forcefully deconstructed. We had to reconstruct our team and how everything was done and all the operations. And I realized that when these 2 agents that took this leap of faith and came with us, like, I had to make sure they were successful.
Oh, you had to?
Yeah. So I transferred as much skills, and so did my wife, into these 2 agents as we could to make sure they were successful. And along the way, in that process of making sure they were successful, I realized that that's really what I wanted to do. That I didn't get near the fulfillment out of selling real estate as I did at helping other people be successful in the real estate industry.
Light went on, but it was probably a series of little lights that just kept coming on, lighting the path that you were trying to head down. You just didn't know exactly where it was going. So you started, you had that moment, and then you started really probably pumping the attention into the videos, the marketing, the talking, doing things that it made you different than anybody else that was out there. When did you start really? Was there a moment where you were like, oh, it's really starting to work here?
Well, and one of the things is that we were still dealing with these rumors. Like, we were still dealing with agents that we would co-op deals with who would say, I don't care what people say about you. You're a pretty nice guy. Yeah, okay. But, it's crazy. We still deal with a lot of the rumors today, but not nearly on the scale that we did back then. But I felt like I had to showcase myself and who we were and how what my relationship was like with my wife, and how we were with our kids, and what we did behind the scenes at our office, because people thought we were just the scum of the earth. So that really gave us that nudge, or my nudge, to shine a light on what we were doing. And doing that, people would say, "Oh, we love your vibe," just from what they saw on Facebook. And so that gave me, the feedback I needed to just keep pushing the envelope and keep exposing more.
You think if your personality had been different back when things were going like this, not currently, do you think the blowback would have been as hard? I mean, where do you think? Sometimes when you are doing things, and you and I talked about this. Mm-hmm. If you put yourself out there and you do things, I mean, you're going to get criticized. sometimes it's legitimate. Maybe you're not coming across like you think you are. Maybe you think you're saying something that when you look back on, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. But a lot of times it's just there's an uncomfortableness that some people feel, and I felt it too, to be honest. When I see someone really stretching, putting themselves out there and doing things and having a big personality and having strong opinions, and sometimes you want to kind of bring that person back down to size. You think there was a part of that coupled with maybe you were, a little bit too cocky, like you said, or? Yeah,
I was very aggressive. There's people that have had a tongue lashing from me in the real estate community that will never forgive me.
Sure.
So yeah, I was really hot-tempered, arrogant, and just would love the opportunity to jump somebody's butt about something.
When's the last time you did that?
It's been a long while.
I always ask everybody, don't judge me. Anything I did prior to age 35.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really grow up to that.
Right.
And I got married young and everything, but 35 is like the light went on. Well, one, my real estate company fell apart. And for the first time in my life, I learned true humility. I learned true failure, right? And the mistakes I made reverbed out greater than I ever would have thought, right? But from that point forward, it's been kind of like I still lose my cool. I still get frustrated. I've got 3 kids. It's just, I'm not. It's not like I wake up every day and say, "Oh, great day," right? But I also have, I think, a little more perspective on how I come across to somebody. You've had bad days, and you've had somebody come and just light you up, and you're like, "Man, if you knew what I was going through,
right,
you would back off." So now you probably have times where you see somebody maybe stumble a little bit, and where in the past you thought, well, they're stumbling because they're lazy or not focused. You realize sometimes life just happens, man. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of truth to that. And that humility and that gratitude, I've never really lost sight of that, and looking back and just looking at all the blessings and everything,
right.
I've tried to be respectful of what has happened and what I've been gifted. And so. Well,
and to be fair, I think, and I talked about this before too, I think there has to be some element you have to forgive yourself too. If anything, the people hearing this, there's going to be some people surprised that there was so much indecision and indirection early in your career, really for many years, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So if you had just said, well, at 30-some years old, you said, well, I've never done anything, and I never will, I'll never accomplish anything. Where would you be today, right? But people, maybe our core doesn't necessarily change, but we grow and we evolve, right? And again, you and I have talked about this, about having to forgive yourself, because if you are out there making a mess, it means that you made mistakes. You hurt people. You said things you didn't mean to. You did things that you wish you could undo and have regret. Mm-hmm. But there's nothing you can do about it now. All you can do now, and I've talked to my wife multiple times, all I can do now is all the mistakes I made in the past, learn from them, and just try to do right by people. And understand that I got to forgive myself. I was a knucklehead at times. Similar story on things, right? And I can't go back and undo all those mistakes and all the things that we did, but I can sure as heck make it right moving forward, and probably make it more right than if I hadn't done those things. If I didn't have that experience, I don't know if I'd have much of a story. If I didn't have these scars, I don't know if I'd have much of a story. I don't know what I could pass on to somebody. So when they're going through these things, because there's always a safe way. Getting into real estate at JWRE, is that safe? Or is that a little bit of an adventure?
That's definitely an adventure.
Right. Getting into financial advising, getting into sales, it's an adventure. The memories that are burned the deepest in your brain. Do you remember what you did last Tuesday?
No.
Do you remember the first day of your real estate license? Second day, third day, first week?
I do, yeah.
Do you remember your first no? Devastating no?
Yes.
Yeah, you remember when the first time you doubted? This is your career?
I've had several of those moments, right. But yes.
So that's burned in your brain, right? It's burned in your brain as a salesperson.
Yeah.
So these are things you can tell people, because if you've never gone through it, how the heck are you going to relay that information?
Yeah, I found it's so much less about what you have to tell people.
That's right.
They want to be able to relate to you, and they want to relate to their experience to yours, and that's when they really start listening. Everything else just kind of, if you're just getting talked out, it goes this way. So
I call it the hairdryer effect. You ever heard?
No.
I'm going to stick a hairdryer in your face for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to talk at you.
Yeah.
Right. And all you're going to hear is this noise coming at you.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah. Until they relate to you, there's no real connection.
That's it. Well, on that note, because Travis, we're probably hitting way past the limit. We're 45
minutes.
All right. So One of the reasons I brought you on was this is the first podcast that we're doing. One part of the podcast is going to be talking to business owners, business leaders, entrepreneurs like yourself. And I really just want to talk about their story because I think I didn't know all this. And I think it's cool because it makes you so much more human, right? There's going to be people that think you had just had success from day one, right? Mm-hmm. And now they know that you had a path. There was a journey there, man. I mean, a real journey.
And there still is.
It hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one part. The other part is we're going to talk to people that are in my network so that you feel like you've had to do some of these things to combat misinformation. I feel like there's an element of what we want to do with educationals regarding the finances for the same reason. Because not only do you have in finance, not only do you have the noise, the national and the international noise of trade tariffs and things like that, but you also have all this noise of all the products and the ways to do things and put your money here. No, don't do that. I mean, you're constantly hearing this guy say, my way is right, this guy's wrong, and then that guy says, no, that guy's nuts. This way's right. Well, what's the truth? The truth is there's nuance to all of it. Mm-hmm. And so what we want to do is we're going to try to take pieces of that and hopefully in a much shorter format than this, we're going to condense it down and give people 15, 20 minutes of, how do these things really work, right? How's the sausage made? That's one of the things we're trying to do here. The only way I'm able to do that, and the reason you're on my first podcast, because I think we have similar stories. You came from a captive agency. I am coming from a captive agency. You went independent. I'm using this podcast as one of my parts, my marketing push, to announce that we are going independent. And we are now going to be fully an independent financial advisor with a independent broker-dealer out of Birmingham called Pro Equities. So that's news. And so thank you for allowing to come on for me to announce that. I feel like we will be, a lot of times, and I guarantee you had people say this, people in your network, they're worried about investing or saving retirement because they feel like they're handing the money over to Wall Street, like they're losing control of it. And I hear that, I understand that, because there are Wall Street-based advisors here in Fairhope, right? We feel like by us going independent, and similar to you, we are truly, truly independent related to the community. Not only is my office in downtown Fairhope, my broker-dealer is in Birmingham. Now, that's not a walk, skip, and jump down the way, right?
Right.
But that's Alabama.
Yeah.
That ain't New York, right? And if we have our way, we're working on having portfolio managers that are local as well. So someone could walk in, a business owner in this area could walk in and deal with nothing but Alabama/Southern Alabama-based service people, including me.
That's
and
awesome.
We're very excited about that. Really excited. That's a huge change from what I'm coming from. So we'll have the freedom to do those things. We'll have the freedom of marketing. We'll have true ownership. You really provided. I already kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do. I just had no idea how to do it. On spreading the word out of the things I wanted to say. There's only so many dinner seminars you can do. People go to dinner seminars thinking they're going to get what? Sold.
Yeah, oh
Sold
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. We want to do things a little different. We wanted to tell, not sell. So that's going to be the point of all what the things we're doing here. Hopefully we get more business leaders on. Hopefully you'll come back and we'll talk about some other things.
I like to talk.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Yes. I'll tell you what a juvenile delinquent I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that's, I'd like to wrap it up this way. How has Fairhope changed since you were a kid, macro? How does that impact where you're at now and what's the future of JWRE as it relates to Fairhope, Baldwin County, Mobile?
I think my wife would like me to stop thinking about or just having ideas in general. But
I know what she wants you to stop doing. She wants you to live in the moment for a minute.
She does.
Because I see your brain running all the time. And if you ever meet my wife, she's like, I just wish he'd have a conversation because I see the focus go out and I know he's working on something that's 2 years down the road.
Yeah.
Greatest strength, greatest weakness.
Yeah.
Fair enough?
Yeah,
okay,
it's fair. Yeah, I have a very hard time being present.
Right.
So like we're going on vacation next week and I'm already setting the tone with my wife going, I got some work I got to do.
That's right.
And I'm already like setting up some opportunities because I'll go nuts sitting on a beach or sitting at a pool. And my wife can sit by a pool for 8 hours and read a book while the kids splash around the pool and I'll go completely insane. But Fairhope is grown by leaps and bounds. Right. I mean, it was just the tiniest, quaintest little town. I love the fact that it's still held on to that at its core. But
Fairhope weird.
Yeah, I mean, people are losing their minds over all the growth, but I mean, it was bound to happen sooner or later.
That's right.
So
if you're able to travel throughout, you'll realize that there are winners and losers in areas right now. and there's really very middle. It's kind of like the middle class. There's really not. They're losing a little bit of that. Areas are winning or areas are losing. This just happens to be a winning area, and with that comes different set of problems. But you still want to be on that side of the equation. You just want to make sure that you handle it the best you can, and that's, I think, where they're really having issues with how do we handle this flood of people coming at us, right?
Yeah,
and it's only going to get worse.
And it's good for my business.
It's good for mine too.
And I like that we have, restaurants now, and people would come to town, and we over the years we've had the best little mom and pop restaurants, but they stay in business for a little over a year and they're gone.
That's right.
And we're like, gosh, it was just such a little seasonal little town, and nothing could ever survive here long term. So now we've got. I try to look at the positives on that side. So I'm excited where Fairhope's growing. I like the growth. Obviously, we've got some growing pains that we're going through as a little town that we need to wrap our arms around for sure.
No issues whatsoever with mayor or city council.
It's all good.
No problem there at all.
Yeah. So in terms of JWRE, where we're going to be in 5 or 10 years, I don't know. It is still a battle to where I'm still in this internal battle with myself,
sure,
where I need to just stop and make what we've built the greatest it can be.
Sure. Or
do I make it a brand that it's not just known in Alabama, but it's known nationally?
Sure.
And so there's these two, it's like two sides of my brain that are wrestling at all times, because one week I'm like, you know what? I just need to nurture what I've got. Sure. The next week I'm like, let's just take it as big as we possibly can. And I'm sure there's some good things and bad things that come along with that, because the needle still keeps getting pushed, but I can't stop the other side of my brain that's got the ideas. It won't shut up. I can't silence it. I wish I could.
Make God laugh. Tell him your plans.
Yeah.
And, the journey, it's what we'll end it on this. What was the point? What was the lesson from the Wizard of Oz? Was it to get the lion of heart? Was it to get the 10 man of brain? Or was the point of it the journey?
Yeah.
And that's what we're on. So,
yeah. All right. Thank you so much for having me. That was awesome.
Very good.
Well, that wraps up another Agent 251 podcast. Thanks so much for listening. You can find our show on iTunes, any place you get your podcast fix. We really appreciate the listening, and please share it with your friends. This show has been paid for and powered by JWRE, Jason Will Real Estate. You can find Jason, Diana, and the whole JWRE team on the internet and Facebook. And everybody have a great and productive and happy week.